Hey guys, Alex Kubasek here with ConvertSource. If your content is out of this world and it's amazing to your customer, provides intense, amazing value, and it answers their questions and solves their problems, just so that you're aware, that does not necessarily mean that they are going to convert with you. Today on the ConvertSource podcast, I'm going to tell you the exact number one thing that you need to be doing with your content to make sure that people are engaging with it and converting on it most importantly. So stay tuned.
3,
2,
1.
When you want your leads and sales on autopilot and to accelerate your business, you come to the source. The Convert Source Podcast with Alex Kubasek. Let's go.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Alex Kubasek with the ConvertSource podcast here. So obviously that intro is a pretty big promise, right? Because conversion is a very fickle thing. It's something that people talk about a lot. It's something that people throw around in terms of a cliche type of conversation piece, especially whenever they're talking about pitches and things like that. But the thing is, when it really comes down to it, conversions are not as complicated as so many people kind of make them seem to be, right? So some people are just always saying and going after all of these kind of vanity KPIs. We're talking about impressions, reach, click-throughs, clicks, all that crazy stuff. Yes, those are numbers like we've talked about in the past. Those are numbers that you need to know, yes. But at the end of the day, are people converting with you? So something that I want you guys to think about is, first and foremost, what is the end goal of a marketing campaign that you have, whether it's paid or organic? And of course, for those of you who are new to the podcast, organic versus paid. Organic just means that it's kind of doing it by itself. The content is valuable to people, so people are starting to search for it. You're coming up. Google and the search engines are recognizing your content as being valuable to answer somebody's query or search. But then whenever we're talking about paid, we're actually paying to put your content in front of people's eyeballs who you think that the message is relevant, which is why we talk so much about your buyer persona, your customer avatar, those things, because you need to make sure that your content and message is aligned with the right person. So the thing that I really want you guys to start thinking about is, what is your end result? So many people just do the spray and pray method. We've talked about that before, where they have an idea and they just kind of throw it out there because they seem to think that, their content or their solution is God's gift to the world. It may very well be, which is fantastic. I wish you nothing but the best. But more often than not, we need to stay on track and we need to have a plan. And we need to be able to optimize. And in order to optimize, there are certain pillars that have to be in place to kind of rule things out to make sure that your content is set up for success. And earlier in the show, I had talked about basically the number one thing that you need to do, without a doubt, have to do today in order to make it so that your content is conversion worthy. And I'm just going to spill the beans right now, but I'll tell you why. The number one thing that you need to make sure that your content has is being mobile responsive. Let me say that again. The number one, and really at the end of the day, the only thing that needs to happen for your content to be conversion worthy is to be mobile friendly, mobile responsive. I'm sure you've heard these terms before. If you haven't, really what it means is whenever think about it. We all search on this thing, right? This is, our pocket studio. It's the thing that is only 18 inches, 36 inches away from us statistically at all times. So if you think about it, what's the first thing that you do whenever you have a question? We've talked about this before. You go to Google or you go to a search engine. But the thing that we haven't quite discussed yet is, think about your personal buyer journey and how you like to go receive solutions to your problems, answers to your questions. You go to your smartphone. So now we're taking it just a little bit deeper. We go to our smartphone. Of course, we still go to Google or a search engine, but we do it on our mobile device because it's so much easier to do. It's always with us. It's between 18 to 36 inches away from us at all times. It's far easier. And quite frankly, the majority of people communicate and actually do work from their mobile device versus always being at a desktop computer. Of course, it's still very important to have your content formatted for desktop, but more people are consuming content on a mobile device versus a desktop device. That being said, you need to make sure that obviously your content is more consumable or is also consumable from a mobile device, meaning mobile responsive. That simply just means that the content, it literally forms to the mobile device better, or the same content on a desktop forms also to a mobile device. That's all that is. So you can read it from your desktop and or you can read it from your phone. The reason being is because we can't display content to somebody and have half of the image gone or squished or, it just looks unprofessional. And so what happens is you've heard of a bounce rate, somebody bounces off immediately. So that being the case, the solution, the number one thing that you need to make sure is that your content is mobile responsive, mobile friendly. And of course, the way that you do that, now there are several ways. So here are like some resources for you guys to kind of tug on. If you already have a web developer, somebody that, or a web designer, somebody that takes care of basically formatting your content for you to publish to the internet, fantastic. That person, that web developer already knows how to make sure that your content is mobile friendly. Of course, you're going to want to make sure that you QA it before it gets published, quality assurance, but you probably already have somebody that's, very versed in mobile friendly. Mobile first content. Mobile friendly, mobile responsive, mobile first, they all roughly mean the same thing. If you do not have a web designer or a web developer, there are plenty of tools out there that help you build pages in terms of like blogs, landing pages, websites, etc., that already have that built into the template. Okay, so things like WordPress, if you have like page builders like ClickFunnels or HubSpot or really just any page builder, lead pages, etc., it's already going to know to mobily format for you. So I would recommend, if you don't have a web developer or designer, I would recommend starting to incorporate some of those tools in your business. And of course, this podcast is not promoted by any of those places. Those are the places that we use at ConvertSource. ClickFunnels is one of the top in terms of like funnel builders and things like that. Very drag and drop, very easy. If you're looking for something that's a little bit more of a website, I would recommend using WordPress all the live long day. It's the easiest one. And whenever you do make the jump to like a web designer or a web developer, you're already going to be so much farther ahead. And they're not going to have to ask questions like, all right, well, your site was from 1995, and now we need to convert it to WordPress. Obviously, if you're not versed in that either, you can go on to things like Fiverr.com, Fiverr.com, or you can go to Upwork.com, one word, Upwork.com. And you can just hire freelance folks that you can either keep as ongoing web developers, web designers, really for any digital item, but you can either just hire them for like a one job, convert your stuff over to WordPress, or to onboard you onto ClickFunnels or a page builder. But really, the bottom line is you need to make sure that your content is mobile responsive and mobile friendly from any device. And the things that I just referenced, like WordPress, ClickFunnels, lead pages, things like that, they're already, those platforms are already designed to make sure that whenever you go toward like publishing something, you have the option to help design them to make them mobile friendly as well. Another one is Unbounce. So these are all great tools that are kind of making it so that you can get your content up and out very quickly. And they're not necessarily like they're designed for people who don't necessarily have a web developer, web designer, or don't know how to do these things. But it's really important because if you're doing a search and let's say you have two answers that look like they're going to answer your question. Well, the first one you click, it has the picture over here, the pictures look squished, or the content is all out of whack, and it just doesn't look great. Of course, you're going to bounce off that page, and then you're going to go to the next one. So we have to make sure that your content is formatted and looks and is eye appealing and aesthetically appealing to make it so that when you show up or your solution is presented, you are the people that are engaged with to help convert that lead or customer. So making it very conversion worthy. Does that make sense? And so, what I highly recommend to so many clients and people that I coach is think of the end result first before you launch the campaign. Because then what you're going to know is when you start to work backwards, and I highly recommend you always want to think about your campaign goal and objective first and work backwards. Because then what's going to happen is you're going to be basically shown all the pillars, all the elements, all the components of the campaign that make it kind of like a ladder all the way up to where you need to start your campaign to basically start building. So you're basically going to create yourself a checklist when you start working backwards. And you're going to find that you've got landing pages that you have to create, you've got blog posts you've got to create, you've got ebooks that you have to create, you've got all of this content that you have to put together. But the thing is, like I said in the very beginning, the number one thing is it has to be mobile responsive. It has to look good on any device. And of course, like I said before, if you're just popping into the ConvertSource podcast, any of those type of mobile responsive assets, any of those builders are things like Unbounce, ClickFunnels, WordPress. When you start searching for things like that, you're going to basically be shown the way to which is best for you. Of course, they all kind of do the same things. Buttons are in different places. They are designed for people who don't have a background in coding, CSS programming, and things like that. So they're very easy to onboard with and get your content published. But like I said, as long as you are thinking, you start off with the end goal in mind, you can work backwards and create yourself a to-do list to make sure that, okay, here are the things that I need to get done. But then the next question you need to ask yourself is every one of those components to my campaign mobile responsive? Mobile friendly? Does this look good on any device? And see, this has always been a really big problem because as the evolution of content has taken place, it's interesting because all of these algorithms, they've all over the last 20 years pushed so hard toward mobile content, mobile delivery of content, mobily appealing platforms that it's almost like you can't not launch a piece of content without being mobile friendly, but you always, excuse me, you always need to make sure that the content that you're presenting looks good to the eye on a mobile device. I highly recommend, excuse me, I had to take a drink. I highly recommend talking with your team and having everybody take a peek at it. Make sure that before you publish it, everybody signs off on it. Just get some different eyeballs, get some different perspectives. Also, because if it's not that piece of content, it provides you with feedback and ideas for the next piece and the next piece and the next piece and different things you can incorporate. And then you can start moving into like split testing things. And for those of you who might not know, split testing is literally taking two pieces of content and really only changing one or two variables on the A piece of content and the B piece of content to see which one converts better. And that's an A/B test. That's a split test. It's the same thing. And so now what you're going to be able to do is you're going to be able to have all kinds of different pieces of content that are now mobile friendly and mobile responsive. But now you're able to really now you're able to say, okay, it's mobile friendly, it's mobile responsive. Here's the pieces of content that people are now gearing more toward. And this is all part of the cycle of digital marketing. Being it, and see, this really goes back to so many people are like, well, this all kind of starts to sound the same. And you're absolutely right. But what I would say back to that is it's not the same. Everything is interconnected. It becomes a perpetual cycle of engagement that's kind of like a pinwheel, right? Or like a well, or what's the old thing? A mill, right? The big thing that's pushed by water. When you have flowing water, picture that flowing water is your content, right? It's constantly flowing, constantly being put into the machine. And that water, aka content, continues to push the well, right? Or the mill, excuse me. I don't know why I keep calling it a well, but it keeps pushing the mill to spin and produce other types of energy or calls to action or different things that help make something run and produce a certain outcome, right? Something that helps make a job easier. So in this case, we're putting in content, the water, into the machine, which is the mill, that is then producing different like cogs that are producing I don't know, whatever a mill produces. Helps you make bread, it helps you grind things, helps you basically automate a lot of things so that you can do more things all at the same time. It's the exact same thing that we're talking about here. When you feed good content, and when I say good content, I don't necessarily just mean an answer to a question. As we've talked about in past episodes, content is absolutely king. And that makes it so that people are going to see you as an authority and a power source in that space to help convert with you through trust and authority. But we also need to make sure that that great content that's solving the problem is received in a way, or AKA on a device, that your ideal prospect is looking for. And so that's why we always say you have to make sure that your content is mobile responsive. So that being the case, now we're putting in solid content that looks appealing, answers the person's problem, query, search, question, whatever. And so what that does is that provides the trust and authority through the content that's answering that, but it also looks great so they know that we know what we're doing. All of these factors and all of these different components, and we'll talk about like the components that you want to put on a blog post, on a landing page, on a website, all of those different things we'll talk about in a later episode. But for right now, just in terms of the actual making sure that your piece, your content piece is conversion worthy, those are the top items that you need to make sure that you have in place to give somebody the best shot of converting with you. Or else, like I said before, they're just going to bounce off and go to somebody else. And of course, we don't want to do that. Excuse me, I have to take another drink. So that being the case, and now we're thinking about your end goal in mind for your content or your campaign. And now you've started to work backwards. Take a second and think about how many content pieces could answer somebody's question or search. So one of the biggest things that a lot of people say to me, well, I've got a great blog post. It answers everything they're asking for, but that's it. So like it's either you hit my blog post, you convert there, or you hit my landing page, you convert there. And if you don't, I got nothing else for you. A little trick. Now, this is obviously getting off of the mobile. I think I've pushed the mobile responsive item hard enough. You know, you guys understand that, you get it. I've given you many resources to be able to reach out to, ropes to tug on to make sure that your content is mobile friendly. It's really not that in depth of a conversation to where we need to talk about it for an entire episode, but it is insanely important. And it's also a very easy concept. So I highly recommend that right after you're done listening to this episode, make sure that you go look at your content and your current campaign assets and make sure that they're mobile friendly, mobile responsive. But from there, now let's talk about like a little bit of like a side option and say, okay, what do we need to do to start giving us the opportunity to solve somebody's problem, but also make sure that they stay on the scent? Right? We want to make sure that they keep coming closer to us. And if somebody says, well, I only have a landing page, and if they convert on that landing page, great. If not, well, they're going to miss out on the greatest thing in the world. You can't think like that, because you have to remember there are 1,001 things vying for somebody's eyeballs at any one time. And so something I talked about a couple of weeks ago was human to human marketing. So H2H marketing, not B2C, not B2B. Of course, those are all still relevant, but because of digital, everybody is, even if they're a CEO executive and you coach only CEOs, they still probably have a personal Facebook page and they like looking at cat videos, or they like looking at things to kind of like relax them and take their mind off of things. So they're also a human being, right? They're not like, you're not running advertising only from 8 to 5. You need to be running advertising 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So you have to make sure that your content, of course, mobile responsive, but is friendly enough and is engaging enough to another human being. That's why it's a social networking platform whenever you're running social ads, or whenever you're trying to answer a search query or question on Google. You have to make sure that your landing page, for example, you're talking to them as another human being, not as a big CEO, business owner who, those type of people, they want one thing. They want the answer and they want it fast. So you need to make sure you're talking to them as a human being, and you're talking to them and you're giving them the straight details that they need to know. You're answering their problem or question. Now, going back to it, how do I make sure that they stay in my sphere of marketing? How do I make sure that I bring them closer to me, like continue to pull the rope? What you do is you start to do a splinter method. As we've talked about before, the ideal blog post is anywhere from like 3 to 500 to 750 words. It's not some long novel. And if you're doing that right now, then you're really lucky, because I'm about to make your life a lot easier. If you have long blog posts and you're sick and tired of writing them, as you probably are, because if you're a business owner, you're probably not a novelist. And if you are, you listen to this too, because it's going to help you with your end goal in mind. Let's say that you have great content pieces in terms of blog posts, etc. I want you to start to actually strike that. Let's say that you have a course, right? Let's say that you have whatever your profession is. Let's say that you have a course based on that. And what you do is you start to splinter out, working backwards, you start to splinter out smaller pieces of content that are kind of like breadcrumbs. So if somebody were to see an ad and they were to go to your landing page, and your landing page was an ebook or a case study on something that's solving a problem that they are having. Okay, that's one breadcrumb. They opt in for it, they get their ebook. Okay, well, they opt in, and then what do? All right, well, now they're coming to the thank you page. Even though in their email now is delivered that case study or ebook, they've come to a thank you page. So that's another opportunity to take them farther down your path, right? So now what we do is, okay, since we at the end goal in mind is a course, get them to join our course. All right, well, maybe what we do is we offer them a taste, like a teaser. We offer them, free or $7 access to one module, let's just say. And that one module like gets them really foaming at the mouth, because it's starting to answer their question or their problem, but it's not solving it completely, right? And this works, by the way. That's why funnels were invented, because it works. So right after that, let's say that they come to the checkout page and they're like, okay, I'm going to exchange $7. I'm going to get the answer to my question, or blah, blah, blah. So now for $7, I've gotten a lot of to-dos. I've got a lot of answers to my questions. I've got, a module that's going to help answer my question. I've got an ebook that I can use to kind of follow along side by side to implement this. Okay, well, now we're on the checkout page and we're about to spend the $7, or we go through and process it. But now let's offer them something else that's going further toward the end goal of joining the course. Let's say, okay, now I've spent $7 to get in on, that one module. And let's say now that we open them up to that, like one particular session. Okay. So now we're actually giving them the answer to that, their big problem or solution, right? So let's say that we charge $97 for that, or $47 for that. And it's now literally the entire answer to their question. In the content, we're actually calling out, if you're here, you're probably wondering this, that, or the other thing, or you're probably stuck here, blah, blah, blah. And obviously it's going to answer their question, or else they wouldn't have clicked on your ad in the first place, or they wouldn't have clicked on your marketing piece in the first place. Okay. Well, now that we've solved their problem, they're about to buy it for $47 or $97 or whatever. But the thing is that we still have an overall course to sell them. We have a library, a massive data dump of mind-blowing content. Okay. And remember, this is all still mobile responsive, but now we still have this library to offer them. Well, now we start talking to them and saying, okay, congratulations, now you've solved this problem, but did you ever consider this, that, and the other thing? And so now what you do is, because they've already bought from you, they trust you, they know who you are, you're offering them help, they've only spent a couple of dollars to have their first problem solved. Now they're saying, okay, well, I didn't think of this, I didn't think of that, I'm probably going to run into that problem. And so now what you've done is you've now brought them, you've given them bigger and bigger breadcrumbs down the funnel that are answering and just blowing their mind all the way down. So not only are you nurturing them, you're invisibly selling them, they're exchanging with you name, cash, etc. Now it's time to actually help provide the real value and let them know that you're probably going to be running into this problem, and and you can even say like only available for another 1 hour, only available for another hour. And so you're going to put some urgency on it as well, because you're going to want to make sure, and of course you're going to be sending them emails because they've hit that page, automated emails, of course, because this entire channel is about automating your leads and sales. But now you've given them urgency. They've already spent some cash with you. You're now introducing them to new possibilities. And all of this is doing to help them convert in the moment. That's why we have funnels, to convert people in the moment. So that being said, now we are starting to automate our leads and sales. And of course, this particular episode is really kind of expanding on the overall funnel and the overall ecosystem of the customer journey. Obviously, not necessarily on just the mobile responsiveness, but that's a very large component of it, because none of this other stuff matters if your pages, your content, etc., are not mobile responsive. So obviously, in this case, I want you guys to make sure that you are working backwards. I want you to think of your end result for your campaign, and I want you to work backwards to A, give yourself basically generate your to-do list for you. B, make sure that your content is mobile responsive. But C, make sure that you're continuing to provide value and splinter out your content and charge forward or just capture more value actions on the way down your funnel. Because you can expand on your content. It doesn't have to be just one blog post. It doesn't have to be just one ebook. You can continue to splinter items out of there, like different sections of your book or something, and elaborate more on them to create more value on the way down your funnel. And so that's where you're really starting to able to really automate your content creation, your content marketing, your really just your value delivery system. And at the end of the day, having that system and those pillars and that invisible selling, like that invisible salesperson essentially in place, gives you the ability to take a step back, stop beating the grindstone, doing everything yourself, and letting a system, an automated system, start to take care of these things for you. Start to prospect, start to bring in new leads, start to nurture them, start to close them, sell them, convert them for you. So start to think of this that way. This is an ecosystem. This is a perpetual cycle of engagement that once we have one person that comes in, we're continuing to publish content to them to keep that mill going. All right, that content is that water that provides energy to keep that mill or that your business running with new customers, ongoing customers, repeat customers, etc. So guys, I really hope that this show today was helpful for you. I hope that, of course, now, we did go a lot deeper into the funnel than normal, because you can only talk about mobile friendly content so much. And of course, I always like to over deliver on these things. I like to make it so that I'm not just leaving you here with a little bit of a taste in your mouth and then bang, you leave 15 minutes after we start and you're kind of no better off and you're no wiser, right? Maybe you might have already known something we were talking about in the very beginning. So I really hope that this episode was delivering value. I hope the ConvertSource podcast in general is always delivering value for you. If you guys have questions, support@convertsource.com. I cannot stress this enough. I am happy to make a show about anything. Any sort of content that you need when it comes to digital marketing, any questions you have, anything you're looking to solve, let's workshop it. Let's work through it together. I'd love to help you. Our goal here is to help 31 million businesses touch the lives through their product or service. That is our mission. That is our goal. And so we want to make sure that we're providing you with content that helps you put your leads and sales on autopilot to make it so that you can help more people all at the same time. Does that make sense? So if you ever want to hear content, if you ever want to really even just give us a call, or if you want to just schedule a free strategy session, we would love to sit down with you, talk about where you might have leaks in your funnel, where you have opportunities, where you're leaving a lot of money on the table. And we want to help you in your business. We want to make you successful, because that is a metric that we measure our success by. So guys, support@convertsource.com. If you have any questions, want to hear about any topics when it relates to digital marketing, we'll tailor the entire show to you and your questions. Support@convertsource.com. Guys, thank you so much for listening today. I wish you the very best in your life, your business, your family. We want to help you explode your business and help touch the lives of your ideal customers and beyond. Thank you so much for watching, and God bless and be great. Thanks, guys.
When you want your leads and sales on autopilot and to accelerate your business, you come to the source. The Convert Source Podcast with Alex Kubasek. Let's go.